listening to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, where women who are ready to expand their life adventure discover the tools to stop playing small and tap into the courage required to enjoy their second wind. Welcome. Good morning, all of you beautiful people out there. I'm so excited that you're here with me today and with my guest. We have a wonderful guest, and her story is so powerful that I think you're going to be enriched from listening to it. It's got some sadness to it, but she is sharing that because that's where all of our growth comes from. So anyway, I want to introduce you to our guest today. Her name is Terri Banner Fitzsimmons, and she is an author, motivational speaker, and a best-selling author of 4 books. She has been in the field of education most of her adult life as a teacher of all grades, a sociology professor for 20 years, and a director of an independent study program helping adults earn their diplomas. She has a passion for the common man that I see in much of her intro about how she would, through the United Way, help parolees find employment. Such a good resource, such a good thing to do. She has worked with the various Indian reservations, homeless shelters, and the CalWorks program at a local college. Her biggest passion is helping women achieve their passion for life, to break free of all the doubts they cling to. And man, oh man, can we cling on to doubts that stop. These doubts stop us from recognizing our will, our worth. So we'll be talking about a fire that took place, and it's called Campfire in 2018. I can't wait to get into this. So anyway, Terri, welcome. I'm so excited that you're here with us today.
Well, I'm even more excited to have the opportunity to speak to your audience, because nothing that I say is rocket science. I mean, let's face it. I mean, everything's been said by Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, Joe Dispenza, but everybody puts their own little twist on it. But I'm the common person, and I've lived through some things. So my motto in life, if I can influence one person, then I've done my job.
Right.
So, if they can hear my voice and go, aha, okay, then that's it. Yes.
Yeah. But I really was quite serious when I talked about how you helped. It's like people that have gone through a lot of trauma, like the parolees, and helping in that part. And in the Indian reservation, I would spent some time out in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And of course, there you do come up against and have occasion to go by Indian reserves. And their life is hard. And it's so wonderful that that's part of your passion to help those people.
Well, when I was going for my master's degree, I just finished writing a book. It's going to be published within the next few months, or no, actually a few weeks right now. It's called I Got Class. And it's my memoirs of going back to college at the age of 40 when I didn't even drive a car yet. I was too nervous to drive. And how all my teaching experiences are in there. Well, because my father was the head of Indian Affairs up in Canada, during the atrocious time of taking those poor kids off the reservations and putting them into these rich homes where there was just no fit whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Be that as it may, I found a passion there to help them. So I worked at an Indian school in Riverside, California, and it was the last stop for these students before juvenile hall, and working with them. And then I worked at helping with career education at different reservations to help them. But it was just so discouraging because I got to them too late. It was instilled in them, it's a lifestyle. But I was able to teach a 6-week program. Oh, It was such a thrill. It was kids that were 7 years old up to 12. And for 6 weeks, I had them during the summer of drawing what was their passion in life, figuring out what they wanted to do with their lives, had them doing aptitude tests. I bought them binders so they could put all letters of recommendation in there, researching jobs, having guest speakers. Oh, they were so excited. It was a thrill.
Yeah, I bet that was a wonderful program. Should have given you a lot of personal pleasure to know that you were making such a difference in
Oh,
those
it does. The whole idea of empowering, but you've got to get to them young to
Yeah,
be able to do that.
right. Now, now I know some of the books. You have 4 books that you
Yes.
published, and 2 of them, I believe, if I've read this right, um, really were the results of being in that fire,
Yes,
the campfire in
that's correct.
2018. And where did this fire happen? What
O-
area of the United
Okay,
States?
all right. When I wrote, both books came out of my journal when I went through counseling, and my counselor encouraged me because I've always wanted to write. Um, my partner and I, my fiance and I, decided to retire, and we bought this really beautiful home up in Paradise, California, just
Oh,
outside of it in an area called Magalia. And we really found our niche. We put improvements into that house. We're only there about 2 months when my mother up in Canada broke her hip. So I went home for 3 months to look after her, came back, and was working. I was substituting. There's no way I can retire. I mean, I'm going to be like this until I'm in my 90s. So I was still substituting. And one by one, the principal was calling students that their parents were coming to pick them up. And I thought, gee, there's something odd here. So all of a sudden, we're told to evacuate. And the ashes were just falling.
oh,
I thought, oh boy. So we went into the cafeteria, the parents picked them up, but I still had 6 children. The parents hadn't come yet. So without thinking, I mean, I could have gone home,
mhm,
but I just hopped on the school bus because I figured those 6 children were still under my care.
right.
And then it took all afternoon to get out. There's only 2 exits out of Paradise, and cars were cutting us off. People were standing by the street screaming. They were so afraid. Exploding tanks. Um, it was an absolute nightmare to get out of there. So finally we did. And the town of Chico was just absolutely wonderful. They had a whole church set up with rooms that had the names of each school, and they had the food, the blankets, everything all set up within a few hours. It was so wonderful.
Mhm. Well, what did start this fire?
I think it was the electric company, PGE, and it was to do with the faulty wiring.
Oh,
And because it was, a lot of trees, a lot of wood back in the nature, everything was demolished. I mean, our cul-de-sac, there was just nothing but ashes.
oh,
Just
wow.
nothing. I mean, I went back to see if I could retrieve a photo album or piece of jewelry. There was nothing. I mean, it just whipped through there. And even Ron Howard did his own research and made a movie out of it.
Mhm,
So,
mm,
yeah.
yeah. Uh, it's very, it's really hard to believe. I've always felt so sad for those people that their homes burned, but when you have it's magnified even more so. The trauma of just experiencing getting those children on the bus, the franticness of the whole situation has to have left a, a little um, history on you and the panic and all of that. I mean, you had PTSD as well. from that?
Oh, of course. Yes. Yes. That's why I had to go through counseling. And that's what got into the books.
Mhm.
So I could help out other people. But luck would have it, when I go out, and this has been the story of my life, I go out to do something, and I don't know why, but bad timing. When I set up all my book signings, and I was so excited to reach other, I didn't want to call them victims. I don't like that word, survivors. The pandemic comes, so that went there. So, but yeah, I still have sometimes if I smell smoke or, I have my triggers, but I
Of
can, I
course.
can deal with that. Yes, yes.
And what do they say to do? What were you taught to do when those triggers come back up?
I've always been one being very spiritual person, and I've got my own meditation room where I'm sitting and deep breathing, calming down, and just going into almost like a meditative trance. And that's what I can do because I get to be a very excitable person by nature. So I'm constantly rewiring myself to calm down, deal with the situation. And um, when I came across the word last year was reframing. I'm learning how to reframe my past, that spirit came along and really kicked me in the butt. I was a very materialistic person. I had clothes and jewelry and degrees and titles and books, all my possessions gone.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I had nothing, but I had all my books on my smartphone. And I
Oh,
remember Deepak Chopra saying, knowledge is wasted, if it's not used. So, okay. So I had to survive. I had to get my identity before I could do anything. So I went out and bought a laptop. And then being Canadian, I had to get my green card, get my
oh
passport.
yes.
My whole identity was gone. Looking back, coming back to the word reframing, guess what? I did it. I survived. I can help other people. You can replace the word campfire for flood with earthquake,
Oh yes.
war,
Yeah.
anybody who's gone through a trauma, and get them out of, I make up words, their stuckedness, get them out of that. And
Yeah.
maybe I can't get them to thrive, but at least to move on with their life and go, I made it. I actually got through this. I made it.
Hmm. Hmm. It's such a feeling of pride almost that you've been able to pull yourself together and keep on. I too, I join you in that I don't like the word victim.
Right. Thank you.
Way too many people live as the victim.
That's their identity.
One thing that happens. Now it's horrible, okay? It's tragic what's happened to them, but I do think that word victim has more power than we want to give it.
Yes. And the whole idea was I went online because being a sociologist, I do research all the time. And I found a map of the United States and all these red dots in every state to show where the survivors of the fire relocated. And it really brings it into perspective that getting away from the initial self pity, oh my gosh, why me? I just moved up here. This happened. I'm not alone. I'm amongst the others.
Mhm.
It wasn't something that God came down and said, okay, this is on you, Terri. No. So
Yeah.
when you look at it in that perspective, and then look, this could be a flood. Again, this could be an earthquake. Everybody's going through something in their life.
Mhm. Mhm. So you did search out medical help, right? Counseling
Yes. Oh, yes.
to handle the PTSD.
Yes.
Yeah. And one of the things I'm sure she told you several things, but could you share what some of those were?
Well, it was interesting because she actually said that I was way ahead of the game, that there wasn't much she could do for me. She said
Oh,
I was actually instinctively surviving. that already I had gone out and taken care of business. I
Mhm.
had reached out to other people and tried to help them. And with my journals, I was able to go through my feelings and then verbalize them and reread them. And she said I was just on the right track with everything and learning again. In my book, I use, and this is with everything, I had to retrain my mother in her 90s because she was always, this is a catastrophe. This is an emergency. Yes, no, mother, it's not. It's stress is not caused by what happens. It's our reaction to it. So it just, how I react to a situation and then go, okay, move on. And then realizing this was the pivotal moment in my life where all my life I thought I was, even though I did things, it was the imposter complex. Oh no, I'm faking it. You know, these people really don't know me that well. But this one showed my inner strength and brought out the essence. And I thought, I've got nothing to lose. And now I can go out and actually live. I don't have to hide behind my possessions. I can just take off my mask and be me, be authentic.
Now, which of your books are there two that talk about the fire?
Yes, there's the Phoenix Rising from the Ashes, because my motto was, before the person I was before the fire is buried in those ashes. I am the true Phoenix. I rose up from the ashes, a transformed person. And then some of my readers wanted to know more about the fire because I'd left things out. So I wrote Smoldering Embers. And
Uh-huh.
then the third book was, after teaching sociology for so many years, looking at empowering our youth. And I look at, and I always listen to kids and listen to their favorite words. I can't do this, I can't do that. And listening to adults saying that. So I wrote a book called Untie the Knot,
Mhm.
N-O-T, in Cannot, showing how society, education, parents, I'm not saying they do it intentionally, no,
No.
but raise us to feel like we can't do things and being stifled and trying to be perfect, which is so unrealistic, and all the photo shoots and everything. No. So that's the one I wrote that. Yeah.
Where do we get that? We get that, those I can, from parents that couldn't do their life or couldn't get a job or couldn't do something, and they took it on like a victim,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes. Thank you. Yes. Yes.
So we kind of get it ingrained in us, just the letters, the names, the words, and we take them on and carry them through our life. They may mean totally different things to the younger person that takes them on, but still, it is creating the negative in the victim. And so,
Yes. And I have to admit, I did live in the victim status, and that's what I wrote throughout the book. I internalized everything. So
which book? The Ashes?
that was the untie knot, untie
Oh,
the
the
knot,
Anti-Knot. Yeah.
untie the knot. Yes.
Where would you suggest, if somebody wanted to read about your experience with three books, where would you suggest they start?
Well, if they wanted to, because the books are unrelated, the two
Yeah.
books are about the fire. So, um, and then the other one, if I've had parents who are interested in socializing or trying to empower their kids, or teachers trying to empower their kids, it's the Untie the Knot. And those are on Amazon, of course.
Right.
And yeah, and I'm just a beginning writer. I mean, I'm even looking back on Untie the Knot and seeing, geez, I was talking like a victim in some of these. So through our writing, we can be candid about ourselves and go, okay, there's room for improvement here. And then I wrote the fourth book. I spent about a year writing it, is Best Friends, A Compass and the True North. And I love courageous women. So I tried to put everything into this book of going from the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and 50s about the two perspectives of two women through letters that they write to each other, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, and how they fight with, and they go through the pack horse librarians who delivered books up into the Appalachian Mountains, Eleanor Roosevelt going into the coal mines, women in the factories, and I had about 30 books of research. So I had fun writing that. But I made a mistake with that, with getting the book out and trusting an editor. And it's got so many typos in it, and it's on Amazon. So I state that. So it's reading it for the content. And I just finished another book of Redemption for Gertrude. And that should be published within another month.
What's that about?
I'm really interested in how we're socialized to hate. And I've got it, Gertrude, growing up after the Great War in a village where people are, the Jews stabbed us in the back, and the Jews did this, and we lost the war. And she was brought up in an atmosphere of hate. And she had a mentor she was absolutely brilliant, to send her off to Munich to actually work with Hitler. So I had found all this research of who discovered Hitler, how he dressed, how he sounded. He hated horses, allergic to horses. He loved to mimic people. He was a great mime. I found all kinds of great things, but showing how she got into this, but then quickly realized, oh my gosh, this is for real. I can't be a part of all this. And then how she tries to escape and gets a new identity. But then it's up to the reader. Will there be redemption for this woman? Can we blame it all on society or blame it on her own personality? But it's up to the reader.
Oh, that would be interesting. Terri. I like that. Well, how long ago did you start writing?
This goes back to untie the knot and I can't. I was always had such a vivid imagination when I was little. I mean, and then when reading, I was the one lying in bed with the flashlight, underneath the covers. I was writing short stories. All my life until my father came in, the strict disciplinarian English teacher. No, this doesn't sound right. No, this is so juvenile. And I never wrote again.
Oh,
See,
no.
I can't. Not until I got back into college at the age of 40, went back to school and started to write little pamphlets for the colleges and slowly got into it. But then after the fire, there's no stopping me. I'm going to do everything I've ever dreamed of. And I'm doing that. I'm living that life.
I have a question for you. Do you believe everybody can be a writer?
Yes, because do you remember every movie I see, people actually make bets with me that I don't care how inane a movie is, I can find a golden nugget in there. And with Steel Magnolias, there's a story there. Everybody has got a story. So when I'm always interviewing people, I walk around talking to people, it turns into be an interview. And even the shyest person, I could never write. And I would go, but I've talked to you. You've got a story that's worth telling. There's golden nuggets in there. Don't deprive us of your background, of your experiences. There's a way, even dictating it to somebody. If you don't feel comfortable, they can write it. But yes, we've all got stories and regrets and things that we need to get out there. And writing is the best therapy for anybody.
I'm a fairly new writer myself. And so I started after losing somebody special in my life and started writing. And I've been writing maybe for about a year. And it's sometimes, but I'm always writing about what happens to me. So what happens to me. So it's not like I'm creating like you have created a story and books with stories. So yes, I'm doing a story, but it's all about Joyce's story. So,
Well, that's wonderful. If you go on Amazon, they've got the outlines to be able to put those experiences into a book.
oh,
I mean,
really?
yes, you go on there doing your legacy and to pass it down for other generations, because we always say, oh, if I only listened to my grandmother, if I only listened about oral history, but it's too late. So the information you have about yourself, people will go, I never knew she had that. I never knew this. And it would be such a thrill for other people.
Yes. Well, I want to go back on you because talk more about you, because you are exceptional in that you have a very high drive. I want to call it
Yes.
that, to complete, to be your best, to change situations, of, of those that are um, those are not those things that are not fair. They're unjust on civilizations, which probably was developed with your father in his experience with the Indian.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that's such an admirable quality. There's so many people in the world today, I believe, that sit and do nothing because they don't feel they can. They don't feel they have the options. And I mean, you have never had that. I think that's wonderful. Except when you had your trauma.
Yeah. Well, no, because most of my life I felt when I was younger, I had a fantasy of going on the Johnny Carson show. Young people would never know who I was talking about, but that's okay. And Johnny would say, okay, Terri, tell me, why are you here? And I'd say, oh, nobody is like me. I'm one of a kind. I can't do anything. I can't draw. I can't dance. I'm like a robot on the dance floor. Teachers used to ask me to shut my mouth if we were supposed to sing, in the choir. You had to take, because, oh, my voice is just unbelievable. Couldn't drive a car, can't do this, can't do that. So I would say, so there I am. All my friends can dance, draw, do gymnastics. I can't even touch my toes. So, but living that victim stage, and so I'm making all the wrong choices. I was so emotionally immature in my 20s and 30s until I woke up when I was 39 and going, oh boy, I guess I should grow up. I guess it's time for me to do something. So I fell into college accidentally, and that was another pivotal thing. Just my whole life changed through education.
Right. Well, why did
Yeah.
you decide to go back at the age of 40?
Well,
Right there is
there
an
was going back to, I always train people in career classes. If you don't know what you want to do, hypnotize yourself to go back to being a young child. Get that passion before some adults said, put away your childish things, you can't make any money out of it. So I found a brochure for local college for writing lab. So I had my fiance at that time drive me there the night before. I was so frightened. I was sweating, literally. I threw up. I was so nervous about
Oh my
attending.
goodness.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would never talk in front of 3 people. There was just no way. So
Right.
I get into this class, and it's a huge class, and the only seats available are in the middle of the class. Well, I walked through just tensing up. And then I found out it was a basic English class where you learned where to put commas and periods
Oh
and all
no.
of the. Oh, and I thought, but I couldn't walk out because everybody would stare at me. So I thought,
Yes.
well, I'm not doing anything this summer. I might as well join this class. So about 2 weeks later, the professor writes on the board, tomorrow, comma, and tomorrow, comma, and tomorrow, comma. And I just blurted out, creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. I sunk in my seat. Anyway, she took me aside, got me together with a counselor, and my road to success began. And I took psychology classes, sociology classes. Oh, I thrived. There was no stopping me then. That was my book that I just finished, I Got Class, is all about, is those experiences.
Oh, and the name of that book?
It's going to be out soon. It's called I Got Class.
I Got Class.
It's my experience on the reservations, how I started up a girl power group in middle school, the
Is that with
parolees.
Girl Scouts? Is Girl Power part of the Girl Scout program?
No, I initiated that on my
Oh,
own.
okay.
Yeah.
Would a Girl Scout troop do that program and call it Girl Power?
I don't know.
But the reason I ask is I spoke at a Girl Scout event, and they had lots of girls from all over, and these were primarily Scout troops, but they called it Girl Power.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah,
Maybe they borrowed your name.
there you go. Yeah. Well, it was quite popular in the 90s and early 2000. And then I'm an avid member of AAUW,
Oh, yes.
Americans. Yeah. And we're doing the tech track and trying to empower girls
Yes.
through that. So that's wonderful.
You think we would think now that we wouldn't need to emphasize the power of young women and open them up to the possibilities that they have. But we do. We really haven't. Have we progressed?
Yeah, I'm writing an article for a magazine, excuse me, about how to empower our youth. So I just sent that one off about 10 minutes before I was talking to you. And looking at the pros and cons of technology, where girls are on their smartphones and they're posting pictures, they're doing selfies, they're so worried about approval of their friends that they're losing, our youth is losing the power of body language and how to communicate face to face and all the skills that they need to go on into the work, developing that ethic. And when I was working at a middle school, and it was in a poor area, the demographics, but still I tried to take these girls out to a restaurant. What's your favorite restaurant? I've never been to a restaurant. Now these are girls that are 13 years old, did not know what a glass is.
What?
Yes. When in first grade, the kids had to do math problems and draw a picture. Jose had 2 glasses, Miguel had 1, and draw the picture. They were drawing spectacles, glasses, because they'd never seen a glass or tasted Chinese food, went to the ocean. So even if we give girls scholarships, they still need the social skills to be able to adapt at university, to be able to talk to others, be able to know how to interact. And so many of them are lacking in that. And we need to be able to teach them those skills. It is so absolutely crucial.
So would you say our schools are failing a bit?
Well, right now, California schools are really slipping because of course, with the pandemic, that started, going downhill. But yeah, it's really sad. We can't meet all the needs of these students. Some of them, even in middle class homes, they come to school hungry. Now, how are they supposed to be in phys ed? How are they supposed to focus? And if they're loaded up on sugar?
Right.
And so it's the school, it's the environment, and we can't discipline them. We're not allowed to.
Right.
And now with I would never be able to teach. I'm old fashioned. I would still say he, she. And I would say a young lady, and you're not allowed to say that anymore. I mean, there's so many restrictions and books that are being banned. I mean, it's a whole different situation now for educators out there.
How do they address the students now?
They.
They? Oh, the he, she is because of the gender challenge.
Right. So even in early grades, the minute like teachers have been fired for saying, oh, this girl. No, and one teacher got fired because it was an all female class. Good morning, ladies. No, he was fired.
Really?
Yes, you're not allowed to address you. have to be so careful. And some people now are raising their children. When the baby's born, there's no gender attached. The people around them are not allowed to, you buy blue, you buy pink, it's a boy, it's a girl. They don't mention any of that. But I still keep thinking the baby still has to have a label. Is it an it? Is it what, to identify the baby? But things are moving so fast and it's just so challenging. And it's hard enough for youth going through puberty to find out their own sexual selves and their own being without all of this on them.
Well, I have to just talk about Florida in the news.
Oh,
News, they have just banned so many books, and it's kind of scary to think that somebody could do that. It just doesn't seem our leadership is taking us where we need to go.
Apparently, I just read it today, but I do have to check it out, that for the AP curriculum, African American studies are being taken out.
Oh, that's true.
Yes.
That's
I mean,
wrong. It's wrong. In my life, that's wrong.
yes.
My opinion is that's wrong. Everybody needs to know where they came from and how they got here.
But how are we supposed to understand diversity if we're not exposed to it?
Well, we have now. What else do we need to talk about? Have we come through the trauma? Have we shared those things that they need to know about what it's like to go through trauma?
Yeah, the whole thing is getting out of that stuckedness feeling, and I keep saying this, to realize it seems so, well, it is, it's unfair. We can go through like all the stages of grief with, anger, self-pity, acceptance, all of this, but things happen. And I remember watching Eat, Pray, Love, where she's in Rome. There's another golden nugget for me, where it was out of the ruins comes transformation. And if there is a silver lining. I don't want to be the overly optimist here, but there is. And we learn from everything, but we have to reframe it and go, I lived through it. I am safe.
Yeah,
and I can get
I
help.
think it's pretty normal for somebody to come through a traumatic experience, and they may have 2 days to be sorry for themselves and regret it and all this. Then they have to just stop, and they have to go, where do I go from here?
Yeah.
Don't you kind of think?
Yeah.
That's kind of where they have to go. And that really depends on the person, how much work she's done and how much work she's willing to do. He, she, they, whatever.
And then going through the identity, how do we get attention? With me, it was my clothes. I hid behind my hats, my matching wardrobe, my jewelry. Oh, yes. Oh, that was a really good mask for me. Now there's other people. Oh, hi, where did you used to live? Oh, I'm a victim from the fire. You still, so many years later, that becomes their identity. And it's like
people that do this.
Yes, because they'll say, where did you relocate from? Well, I'm one of the survivors. I remember years ago, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and I got into a support group, and I met this one woman, and we went to a seminar on it. And so she had all these books and everything on it. And she started talking about, I had a flare up today, and oh, my leg, and I could barely put on my jeans or move my arm. And I remember leaning on the car and just shaking my head. And she said, what's the matter? I said, just see, that's the difference between you and me. I am a person who has fibromyalgia and working to overcome it. You are fibromyalgia. That has become your identity.
Yes, it's true.
And some people will do that. They'll keep a bad back. Gee, they don't have to have sex with their husband. They'll be sick. Well, nobody's going to expect me to work. So we all take on a persona, but we all have to realize what is the payoff for that persona.
I have to throw this out. How does, I think one of the biggest share we could have from the audience today is the importance of sitting down, writing their experience. How would you tell them to write? Just free spirit, just let it go, just dump their thoughts onto a page? Is that what you would tell them to do? To help
Yes, I
that anger
yes.
and that self-pity out of the body?
Yes, I have two journals that I write because I have a rigid schedule every morning. I have my tea, I meditate, I do my journal writing. But I have one which, like you're talking about, yesterday I did this, this, and this. No feelings involved, just just the facts, nothing but the facts. Then I have another one where, oh, where did that come from? Oh, boy, the knots in my stomach, I thought I was over that. And just writing. And if I can't, I find a quote and write to that quote, but just ramble and date it. And in fact, I was counseling one woman last week, and she said, "You asked me to write, and there's no way. I read what I wrote 3 weeks ago, and I started crying because I was so sad." I says,
Oh,
"But look at you now, you're laughing. You're in a good space now. You need to keep that feeling of depression in your pocket. You keep that because you know, wow, I was at that space, but it didn't last. Nothing lasts.
so the
Everything
writing,
is impermanent." Yes, you
writing,
identify your feelings, you identify certain trends in your life. Certain, okay, boy, I went through this last year at the same time. What in the world's going on with that?
mm-hmm,
Just waves that come over you.
mm-hmm. Do you encourage people that when they do write that they get in a group of authors, or just keep it their own self-improvement program?
Oh boy, that's a tough one because writing, you're very vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
I know it took all my courage to join the writing group here when I first moved. And in fact, when I got some criticism, I quit. It was the tone. Yeah, I quit. And then the leader of the group posted a picture.
Very
You'd
good,
have loved
Terri.
you'd have loved the picture. It was two Gatsby girls, flapper girls on these old treadmills. They were with the Mary Jane shoes, and the treadmills were made of bamboo, and they looked so cute with their bobbed hair. And so I thought, oh, I can write a story about that. So I wrote a 2-page story about these two women, but it was from the perspective of one of them was in her 80s, and she found this old photograph from her book and brought out the memories. Well, that became my novel, Best Friends,
Right.
but it was
Ah,
pictures. But it takes a lot of courage to the other way to be able to share. But more and more people in our writing group are sharing their experiences. And
mhm.
one woman, Beth, just wrote a fantastic memoir. It took her a whole year. That's her daughter
Wow.
gave it for a Christmas present. What were your favorite days with your grandparents, your travels, your first marriage, all these questions that she just answered. So sometimes writing can be structured in that way, but it's kind of iffy if a to share. But even if you could share it with a loved one or a friend that you could trust to start off with.
Yeah, when I write, I share it with my friends.
Good, good,
Two or
good,
three,
good,
two or
good.
three of those friends. Now, we're coming to the end of our time together, Terri.
Wow, that was
I know
fast.
you and I could keep going for another hour, probably. But
Mm-hmm.
I read a book by Julia Cameron that said never too late to begin again. I don't know if you're familiar with her work,
No.
but anyway, in that book, I became so enthralled by the word of joy. She would
Yes.
give a short example of joy. And so I like to ask my guests about their experience of true joy. what it felt like, and what it was about. So can you share that with me?
Oh, wow.
A time in
Actually,
your life where you experienced
I have got in my heart, when I do my walks throughout the community here in the little park here, I've got ongoing joy because one of my major things to do is being one with nature. So, in order to feel joy, I have to get that childlike, almost like you've been blind and now you can see. I close my eyes and go, ah, and look at the flowers. I lean back in a patio chair at the commune and look up at the changing clouds, and I feel so much joy because everything that brings us joy is priceless. Think about it. It's not about the clothes, the makeup, the approval. And that to me is my joy, that I'm a part of all this. I can feel all of this, and it's
Well, it's time now.
it's
Terry,
time to
I
say,
always feel like, oh, I don't want to turn myself
I
out.
know.
But anyway, I would like to sign off with my listeners, and then I'll be back to visit more with you. So, dear listeners, as usual, I would like for you to think about who out there could benefit from today's podcast. Now, there's probably multiple people, but maybe there's not. There could be women struggling, men struggle even sometimes with their own identity and finding out where they can grow and become more than what they've allowed themselves to be. So, I like to do an assignment, but the assignment is to maybe re-listen to this podcast again and identify some of the good suggestions that Terri shared with us about the fight, about the trauma, about the victim, about so many things that we could take to heart. Maybe it's about making sure your children receive the right messages as they grow. So anyway, I'm so glad that you were here today, and I look forward to next week having the time to share with you and another great guest. So please have a great week. It's going to be fun, maybe a little rain here and there, but it's going to be fun. So thank you for being on Second Wind today. It's always a pleasure to know you're there.
Joyce Buford returns next week at the same time for another edition of Second Wind. Through the Joyce Buford Empowerment System, women are receiving the support they need through their transitions and are able to reclaim their true purpose with confidence. They receive the tools they need to map out new lives. You can find out more about her coaching services at joycebufordempowers.com.